Hi, I'm Kelly Ayers, and for this first segment, I'm going to be talking about Standard 1, Content Knowledge. This standard states, candidates demonstrate the knowledge necessary to create, use, assess, and manage theoretical and practical applications of educational technologies and processes. For this indicator, I chose a variety of examples of my work from lesson plans to an evaluation report. My asynchronous lesson plan was designed to be everything a lesson plan which capitalizes on educational technology should be. It utilizes tools to which enables the teacher to teach the lesson by either doing it whole group or as a fully functional standalone in the event of a needed reteach or absence. This lesson is based on inferencing, a very vital comprehension strategy for a second grade classroom, and it offers a variety of activities and technology-driven opportunities for students while capitalizing on optimum opportunities for engagement. I mean, who wouldn't want to infer about their neighbor's garbage or create a found poem that other students could infer the main idea? My RSS and education assignment celebrates Genius Hour, students using creativity and choice through passion projects by first learning how to investigate how to answer driving questions through the technology and ease of RSS feeds. And using my final evaluation report on the Blooms app, I successfully researched and assessed an application that is now being used school-wide at my elementary as the sole communication tool for parents, as well as a tool that imparts the learning targets of the classroom and at-home mastery tricks that parents can efficiently use to help their students progress and promote growth. The Blooms app works much like a classroom Facebook, but it is passcode protected to enhance the privacy of young students and its parent users. Parents receive posts daily of the goings-on in their child's classroom, as well as invaluable educational information to keep them well informed of their child and classroom progress. It also makes things like scheduling parent-teacher conferences and classroom volunteers stress-free. In this segment, I'm going to be discussing Standard 2, Content Pedagogy. This standard states, candidates develop as reflective practitioners able to demonstrate effective implementation of educational technologies and processes based on contemporary content and pedagogy. This standard actually contains my favorite assignments that I completed during the course of my EdTech program. In the game design assignment, I had to take a pre-existing game and design it into something that would represent meaningful pedagogy to my students, with the idea of satisfying the contemporary needs of my students as well. My video showed my overall game design and discussed how the gameplay works to help students overcome the daunting emotional trials of being confronted with bullies by approaching the problems through humor and discussion. This assignment was especially meaningful to me because of the active role my students took in the creation of it, even designing the characters and cards that went along with it. The Bullies of Hubbard Hollow Elementary was based on the popular game The Werewolves of Miller's Hollow, but instead of identifying the werewolf and supporting characters, this game identifies the bullies and other members of an elementary school. My project-based learning assignment on bee decline entitled Be Smart challenged students to create products to raise awareness of bee decline after researching through a plethora of technological means while ultimately assessing their ability to understand why pollination is necessary and important as outlined by our science core standards. Students are not only assessed on the standards themselves, but through a lengthy reflective process both in small groups and individually. My Resley Game Lab reflections are something I really wanted to include, not just because of the amount of work that was included throughout my 2 classes with Dr. Hassel, but because they embody my reflective practice as I embarked on a very different kind of learning approach with gamified lessons driven by choice and a badge and point system I had never quite encountered before. My media literacy lesson was something that was very close to my heart because I had really stressed over what media literacy meant to my students as young primary second graders. Parents watched a series of videos and answered questions to help in mastering such concepts as credible research and cyberbullying. In this segment, I'm going to be discussing Standard 3, Learning Environment. This standard states, candidates facilitate learning by creating, using, evaluating, and managing effective learning environments. For this standard, I included many different artifacts to show I can implement effective practices directly tied to desired learning outcomes while maintaining technology infrastructure and adhering to the necessary ethics pieces and celebrating the diversity of learners in my classroom. Researching through the Bridging the Digital Divide assignment was an eye-opening experience that enlightened me with ways I can close the technology gap with my very socioeconomically diverse students. My web quest and synchronous lesson plan show how I can take content and create learning experiences through solid instructional practice and with careful, deliberate technology implementation. With my Establishing Netiquette assignment, I empowered students to establish educated online routines while protecting themselves from the possible dangers after collecting the necessary data and research to address what deficits and misconceptions they had when it came to that content. My Learning Theories paper promoted the technology infrastructure as it relates to learning by examining how the learning theories can be evolved to apply to today's standards with technology and education. My Reward Structures paper recognized the diversity of learners and acknowledges that teachers need to be cognizant and respectful of using the time we have in the most effective manner for students, while keeping in mind what they want to accomplish as their learning goals as well. In my Response to RFP paper, I was able to analyze and role play in the realm of technological evaluation. In this segment, I will discuss Standard 4, Professional Knowledge and Skills. This standard states, candidates design, develop, implement, and evaluate technology-rich learning environments within a supportive community of practice. For this standard, I included my long and short working app because it was wholly designed from start to finish to satisfy a content standard while including a technology-rich methodology. Each component was designed and driven with my students' personal learning needs in mind and gave them an engaging opportunity to gain more exposure on a vitally needed content area. I included my asynchronous and synchronous lesson plans again in the realm of leadership because I was able to successfully implement this technology-supported lesson plan grade-wide after sharing it and teaching it to my grade level team. These resources are now available to any second grade student in our elementary school. The most appropriate measure of reflective process has come from the portfolio website, as it is the culmination of my entire body of work throughout this program. It has been a very reflective process to revisit all of the components that I have experienced throughout this program so far. Another very meaningful piece that exemplifies reflective practice is the log I kept while in the mobile app design class. This was very technically difficult for me, and I learned quite a bit about myself and how I should treat my students when things get difficult in the process. For my Be Smart project-based learning activity, I created and implemented evaluation plans tied to a driving question students could explore and research together. It has resulted in one of the most meaningful classroom experiences from my whole program. My Classroom YouTube channel not only addresses the diverse needs of my learners, but also has a wide variety of resources for other teachers as well to expand and enhance their practice in primary reading. In this segment, I'm going to discuss Standard 5, Research. This standard states, candidates explore, evaluate, synthesize, and apply methods of inquiry to enhance learning and improve performance. Through my research and the favorability of using gamification methods to enhance engagement and effective learning in the classroom, I included my Alphabetize It lesson plan, as it takes a pre-existing game through a popular children's educational website and gamifies it in an unexpected way by adding a competition element to student learning to increase stakes for accountability and participation. This is very similar to my Bullies of Hubbard Hollow elementary game, which was also adapted from a pre-existing game, but instead of adding just a competitive element, it adds a social and emotional discussion piece to encourage students to talk about their feelings in a healthy way when it comes to bullying in schools. As far as my ability to apply formal inquiry strategies, I feel this is best demonstrated again through the many components of my evaluation report on the Bloom's application. I did numerous surveys and engaged in many discussions to gather as much anecdotal evidence as well as quantitative measures. For my virtual field trip, I chose to teach students about the War of 1812. At that time, second grade students were expected to read nonfiction stories from the war to tie them to the genre of nonfiction without any real content to why or context to why the history was meaningful or important. This virtual field trip sought to remedy that. They did this through reading about some of the background, visiting virtual areas they could explore, and watching designated videos on the topic.